Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett just went ham in another oversight meeting. And in this one, it is a touchy topic. They're talking about trans people and, what Republicans want to do about, trans people. But she really lays a few things out on this one. And it's crazy. You can really see how savage like these oversight meetings are. And I'm going to point out some of the things that I think are really, really savage as we go along. But let's take a listen to what Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had to say. And make sure you stick around to the end because she doesn't disappoint.
Thank you so much. It is so interesting that I just learned today at 44 years old that the Republicans are going to be the ones to save women. The same Republicans that have been, say, for women's reproductive acts, or the same Republicans that have stood for the Equal Rights Act, which would hopefully get women to equal pay, or the same Republicans that just this Congress voted for the SAVE Act, which we know would disenfranchise women from even being able to vote. But let me tell you, they are our saviors, and so I am so happy to be here today, because otherwise I would not have an idea that I had a savior in the Republicans. So let's also talk about the fact that it's only been 100 days, 100 long, terrible days for anybody that absolutely believes in reality, because what we know is that they have terminated staff responsible for enforcing federal protections against sex-based discrimination. Sounds like that's pro-women. Or they've cut funding for domestic violence survivor services. Sounds pro-woman to me. Or they've prohibited funding for research affecting women's health. That definitely sounds pro-women to me. Essentially, they closed the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. Again, sounds like they are fighting for us. And instead of providing oversight over these actions, congressional Republicans have been working to execute one of the most aggressive anti-women legislative agendas in history. And yet they're here today trying to convince the American people that discriminating against trans people is somehow the only way to protect women. This hearing has nothing to do with improving government efficiency. It's another attempt by Republicans to distract from their demonic and disastrous policies that are making it more difficult for Americans to make ends meet. So, Miss Goss Graves, I want to play a game. It's called Trump or Trans. You ready? Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to tell me whether or not it is Trump or trans people that are responsible. You understand?
Got it.
Okay, very good. The first one, gutted medical research.
Trump.
Savage.
Kidnapping Americans and sending them to foreign countries, a.k.a. deporting them.
Trump.
Savage.
Driving us into a recession.
Trump.
Increasing the cost of everything.
Trump.
Waging an idiotic tariff war.
Trump.
Harming farmers.
Trump.
Ignoring the Constitution.
Trump.
Proposing to take away Social Security.
Trump.
Cutting health care.
Trump.
Firing government workers who keep our country safe.
Trump.
Encouraging an environment of hate and divisiveness.
Trump.
Thank you so much. This committee could be engaged in actual oversight of fraud, waste, abuse, and mismanagement. So let's talk about waste. Like Trump's plan to spend almost $100 million for his little birthday parade. Or how he spent 25% of his first 100 days golfing, costing taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. In fact, it's a little bit over $30 million at our last estimation.
Hold on. I'm weak. Jasmine Crockett got somebody holding up a poster of Trump and saying for about his golfing. And look, the lady beside her, she weak. She weak. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene over here. Yeah, she turning away. She know what time it is. She know Jasmine coming with that smoke. Man, this is savage. It's savage. But let's keep it going.
In fact, President Trump is on pace to spend more than $1 billion of taxpayer dollars just on golfing. Yet the Republicans have been silent. So they must think spending taxpayer dollars on the president's golfing trips is more important than providing health care to their constituents. And when I talk about constituents, we're going to talk about the ones on this committee. So if we look at Texas 26, 39,000 children look to potentially lose their Medicaid with the cuts that they are about to vote on for reconciliation. 88,000 in Georgia 3, 68,000 in Missouri 7. 79,000 in Tennessee 2, 86,000 in South Carolina 4, 50,000 in Texas 04, 85,000 in Texas 27, and in Georgia 14, 111,000. And if you add that up just on this committee, we have 606,000 kids that are relying on us to do right by them. And instead, we playing these crazy games because we worried about 10 trans folk that are in sports right now in college.
Pause. You can Google that. You can Google how many trans athletes are in sports, and Google will tell you it's about 10 that are in college. So I can understand where she is coming from when she says there are, so little trans people that are actually playing sports. So why are we hell-bent on attacking that when there are so many other things that we could be worrying about? I'm pretty sure that is the message that she is relaying when she labeled out all of these things that we could be doing, could be looking out for. And at the same token, I do think, sports. When you're talking about sports, we have women's sports and male sports for a reason. So I can see how, trans people can kind of come in and, confuse things a little bit. I definitely think if you were a man, you should be playing with men. And if you were a woman, you should be playing with other women, regardless of, what you work you had done or whatever, because it is a reason why men play with men and not play with women. Imagine if, a female was out there on the football field, how the men get so big and you could really get hurt and injured. You wouldn't put a woman out there, right? Even though I know they're strong, no slight to women, but that's a physical, hard hitting contact game. Is a men's sport for a reason. And certain sports, like even you talking about boxing, I couldn't see no man in the ring beating up a woman. That's just it's separate for a reason. So I do understand that there is a need for clarification, but again, I understand her stance. There's a lot of other things that we could be worried about.
I wasn't elected to be engaged in these fights. I was elected to make sure that those kids, the kids that they are about to neglect with these terrible votes that they're about to take, I was elected to protect them and to make sure that they could grow up and have all the opportunities. But let's keep on track. Now, when we look at how much they are spending on, let's look at fraud. We could investigate whether the White House and the members of this subcommittee engaged in insider trading and market manipulation. Maybe it's a coincidence that the chairwoman brought hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock the day before Trump announced a 90-day pause on tariffs. But I guess we'll never know. So finally, let's talk about abuse. Like how the Republicans have let Elon steal data of Americans and his competitors to make himself even richer. Look, don't let these hearings distract you from their destruction. This is rage baiting instead of conducting oversight over the issues that Americans actually care about. And with that, I will yield.
All right, so that was the end. So, man, that was savage. That was savage. You guys just saw she accused, Marjorie Taylor Greene of insider trading right in her face. And you saw the reaction of everybody around. They were like, yo. So this went from, talking about trans to accusing one of the committee members of insider trading. That's a crime. Man, Jasmine Crockett be handing it to these Republicans. And that was savage. She was savage on that one. Let me know what you guys think about that video. And like always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.